Hi, my name is Kay Sutha. I am a business strategist and I will be your host. In this podcast, I'll be getting raw, real, and relentless whilst interviewing successful entrepreneurs from all over the world who specialize in different aspects of business. We'll cover the five main pillars of business, which are sales, marketing, finance, operations, and leadership, but not forgetting mindset, live and digital events, plus much, much more. You will gain insights, tips and tricks, and discover jaw-dropping actionable steps that you'll be able to put in place for your business right away. Guys, today our next speaker is the author of 8 books, including one of Business Game Changer magazine's top 3 books of 2020. He is a business coach, mentor, consultant, therapist, and founder of a multi-award winning Business Enjoyment. His purpose is to bring back into business and create movement where everyone is talking about enjoyment as a key measure of success rather than sales and profits. He works with entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes on how to be successful and actually enjoy the journey at the same time. He is here today to share with us how to enjoy your business so much that it makes your bits tingle, guys. Please welcome Andrew Miller, founder of Business Enjoyment. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you, Kay. It's great to be here. Good to see you again. And looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, definitely. So I have come onto your podcast. We've had a conversation as well several times about what you do, what I've been doing. And I knew that I had to have you on my podcast because first of all, your even catchphrase, right? You like to get people's bits tingling when they do business. I was like, oh my God, what is that all about, right? And then when you kind of explained to me what that meant, I was like, right, I need to have you on this show because there's so much value and golden nuggets that you give to people about business that people need to hear it. So many people need to hear it, right? And so what I would like to do and how I structure this podcast in every episode is to find out a little bit about you and what you were doing before you got into business and how that transition came about.
Yeah, no problem at all. And it's part of the journey. It's part of everything that I do is my background in many ways. So it seems quite odd as to what I did before. It may not sound that obvious, but take it through this. I used to be an accountant. Hooray. Very specifically, I actually used to be an insolvency practitioner. Ooh. And now, depending on what our audience members are, if you're in a Commonwealth country, you'll be familiar with the system we have in the UK. But if you're in America, it's slightly different. But the bottom line is, in this country, if a bank lends money to a company, it's kind of like a mortgage on the house. They've got to keep payments up on their money, or else the bank can repossess it. And that's what can happen when a company goes bust. The bank takes control of that company and brings in a firm of accountants to run it for them to realize the money effectively. So my job for the best part of 17 years was spent running businesses. You take ownership of that business, you get really hands-on involved with it. It's not just sort of sitting in a boardroom making strategic discussions. You're out there, negotiate with customers, getting creditors and suppliers back on board, working with the team members and that kind of thing, and actively running it, trying to keep the thing alive, try and get it back up and running again, and hopefully sell it and save all the jobs. Yeah. So that was a firm called KPMG, which you may have heard of, one of the large accountancy firms. And I did that, best part of 17 years in this country, around the world. I was working in Australia for a couple of years, working in the Far East. So quite a lot of experience. And so getting this aspect in every single element of business and law and HR policies, and had to get involved with every single bit of it. So brilliant experience. But had that realization moment that I could do it, but I wasn't really enjoying it.
Right.
And the satisfaction wasn't there, and you got a buzz when you're in the job. But I knew I didn't want to be there. I wasn't going to be where I was going to stay for the rest of my life. Right. And of course, I knew what I didn't want to do. Well, what the hell do I want to do? And that took a little longer to find out. But obviously, I've been getting into leading teams and getting much more into the personal development sort of thing. So that led me down to the coaching route as I started getting involved in that area of stuff. But finally made the decision to jump out about 10 years ago, which is over 10 years ago now. And when I started, my very specific niche was helping those business owners that were losing everything, that were watching everything that they built collapse in front of their eyes, and help them deal with the emotional side of things. So obviously I understood the business side of it, but what's going on in their head is quite significant, because it's a trauma. It's like a loss of a child. It's like, it's serious stuff, and it has an impact on confidence and identity and all these sort of things. So I focus very specifically in that area to help people back up, and that's why my first book was around, the one that won the award and all these sort of things. But then I was working with other people as well, because your niche, but you work with all sorts at the same time. And I was working with other people who were doing okay, and when I was networking, and what I noticed was that it kind of didn't matter where people were in their success journey. People were still getting stressed or not really enjoying themselves or whatever it was. And I remember interviewing millionaires, and they were being treated for stress, anxiety, depression, all these sort of things. It's like, look, I've just come to this guy who's lost everything. Of course they're miserable. They've got an excuse. What's yours?
Right, exactly. What was going on with them there then?
Well, this is it, because business life is primarily focused. Our definition of success in society is how much money do you make?
Right.
What's your sales? What's your profit? And you can see it all the time you get those emails through and the stuff on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff. Get your six-figure seven-figure business. It's all about making money. But isn't
that what business is all about? That's why people decide to build their own business, so they can make more money than they would do if they were employed, right?
I have nothing wrong with money. I know it hurts when you get it wrong. So this is not an anti-money rant, but it's when you only focus on that,
right,
you miss out on everything else. And this is what's been going on with everybody. So it's like, because it's been primed, that's what you need to do. Then all the sacrifices, they're losing relationships with their family, or they're working with people they shouldn't be working with just because they pay. And so you're working with a total idiot that winds you up. You're actually feeling, oh God, I've got to face that person today. Oh my God, I don't want to talk with them, whatever it might be. And of course, anybody that's run their own business will know, once you've stepped out into the limelight to be yourself, it throws up all this stuff you didn't even know was there. Yeah. You're the center of attention. You've got to sell yourself. You've got to be out there, and there's always, no one just comes in and goes, oh, this is easy. There's always something in there which is going to tap into some deep hidden fear you never knew existed.
So you really get deep with people.
And so I'm trained in a number of different therapies and stuff, and I found I was really good at anyway when I was, obviously starting in KPMG, when I was working with people with whatever issue they might have, and then working with these people going through really traumatic situations. Partly probably because of the training, but when you're in insolvency, you're quite good at distancing yourself. You don't take stuff on personally. So I was very good at being able to keep that slight distance, so I can let that person be what they need to be without it impacting on me, and then I can help lift them up and steer them. So I've got into some conversations can get very deep. I mean, I've had conversations with people about sexual abuse, rape, suicide, these sort of things, and that is the part of a lot of people's lives, but it's never shared or never talked about. But it shapes who we are, and it impacts on what we do on a day-to-day basis. So
tell me this then, because I mean, the kind of things that you're helping people with, you said suicide and rape and those kind of things, is not small detail. This is huge. So I know that there's some coaches and consultants that struggle with the fact that when people come out with this and they get very vulnerable and they tell you what's been going on, how do you not let that affect you? Because a lot of coaches allow it to affect them, right? They take it with them, they carry it with them. How do you stop that from happening?
It makes it sound like it's a technique or a conscious decision, but I think it's something that's built, an element of built in. And again, as I alluded to, that insolvency job helped me be able to do that, because when you go in a company that's gone bust, you're making people redundant, you're telling suppliers that they're not going to get any of the money that they're owed, but by the way, can you please keep working with us? And you're constantly delivering bad news.
Right.
So you can only survive in that environment by being able to build this wall that doesn't touch your own individual psyche. Now, and we'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but having then gone into my own environment and working for myself, and then my fears and traumas have then materialized. I've had to do a lot of inner work and understand what I'm about and where these things have come from. And actually, I realized that at a very young age, I learned to start bringing walls up and not, which on that level makes it difficult to build really strong relationships with people. Part of what we need to do is let those walls down to show those vulnerabilities and allow the right people into our lives, but we can often just put them to one side. So there's different layers in there. It's not going to be a quick answer. How long do you want?
All right, we'll leave that one there. There's still a lot more to go through. So now, I did mention in the intro, you allow people to enjoy the journey of being on the business, and at the same time enjoying it so much so that it allows their bits to be tingled. What does that mean to you?
So again, slightly multi-layered elements of it, but the key thing in terms of there is that element of it's a nice strap line, obviously, whatever, but ultimately underneath hitting it is the key element for me in terms of business enjoyment. So I've developed what I call the business enjoyment model, which has various things in place. Is that you really do need to make sure you're keeping an eye on and you've got in place. So as I say, that you obviously got to look after your finances, you've got to look after your mental health, you've got to be working with the right kind of people, you've got to feel good about the stuff that you're doing. All these things that just need to be kept hold of. But the thing that really lifts things up and takes you to another level is sort of the sense of purpose, the sense of meaning, the connecting that why through to what you do. And when you can get the business that you do connected to something that has real meaning to you, then you sort of, everything changes. You get into this state of flow so much more easily because you just know why you're here on this planet, and it all makes much more sense. And when you're in that state, all your thought processes align. So we traditionally we're in that concept of we think with our brains, we think with our heads, very head thinking society at the moment. But most people now are aware, and it's a lot more common that we think with our gut, we think with our heart. And sometimes when we've got a decision, we can actually ask each of these sections and think, what should we do? What does my head think? What does my heart think? What does my gut think? And we might get differing opinions sometimes. We've got to sort of listen to all of these things to try and form a balanced opinion. But when you're in purpose, these all align. It's like, there's no arguing. We know what we're doing. We're going in the right direction. And it's like a lightning bolt coming.
Okay.
And I call the three things, I call them your brain, your tummy, your soul. So collectively, using the initials of your brain, your tummy, and your soul, they're your bits.
Right. Oh, okay.
Find your purpose and it all comes through, then your bits are tingling.
Oh, that makes complete sense. Oh, I love that idea. Okay. So tell me this. How do you help people find their passion? I think this is the biggest thing that people struggle with. So in order to enjoy the business that you're building, you've got to be passionate about it. So how do you find that?
Well, I think you've got to delineate a little bit, because there's the passion about the thing you do. And I think most people, because it depends where you are on your journey, and this is the key thing. So if you're at a point where you don't know what to do, and been made redundant, just left your job, which was a point where I was at. I said I was at stage where I knew what I didn't want to do. There is an element of trial and error. I mean, this should be, but ideally, the thing you do should be something you enjoy doing, and that's. If you don't know what that is, you just got to try different things till you find it in many ways, and give things different goes. But the other side of it is the getting connected to the purpose. So the whole point about purpose is it is making a difference for somebody other than yourself, something bigger than you. So most of what we do is internally generated. So how can I how can I work with the right kind of client? How can I make more money? How can I make sure I'm okay and I'm enjoying what I do? That's all very worthy. The fact that it's self-centered, that's not an issue. This is not about, there's no judgment on that. We need to do that. We need to look after ourselves. And sometimes we're very bad at it. So we absolutely have to look at ourselves first. And that gets us up to what I would say, you can be happy when you do that.
Yes.
The sense of enjoyment is when you start stepping outside of that and it starts doing something for somebody else, and it doesn't have to be a person. It could be a region. You could be passionate about the where you come from. You might be a proud Yorkshire person and everything you do is for the town of Barnsley or the county of Yorkshire, whatever it might be, but it's something over and above yourself. So it gives you a different focus, and that doesn't need to be connected to the work that you do.
It doesn't?
It doesn't, or it doesn't need to be the same as. So okay. I'll give you an example with, I know what people are like. Don't shoot me if you don't like this particular individual. I'm using them as an example, and you might not believe it. Let's use the image. I'm going to run with Bill Gates. I know there's a lot of words about Bill Gates at the moment, or whatever. But whatever you think of him, and whether you believe it or not, on paper, there's a lot that he's doing with his foundation, with trying to cure malaria, and I know we've got rumors about the chips, but actually he's trying to do a lot of good in the world, sort of thing.
Right.
And he's able to do that with the funds that he's created. Now that's got nothing to do with computers. That has absolutely nothing to do with the laptop on your desk.
Right. Okay.
Yet one has enabled him to do the other.
Right. Okay.
So it's not directly connected, but one does support the other. So you can have one, which is the thing that you do, can enable you to do the thing that you want to do, if that makes sense. So as long as you're passionate about the computers, you can then enable that to create the thing, that the purpose and all the rest of it. If you can get them both aligned and the thing that you do is that thing, then even better, perfect. But that's not always the case.
No, and I like that, because as human beings, we are going to have different interests, right? There are things that we want to do. And as we evolve, right, as we become better people ourselves, there's going to be other opportunities that you're going to start seeking out and wanting to get involved in, right? So that's completely normal in business. And getting off track and doing something that's very different to the business that you're growing, there's not an issue with that, right? Because that's what's meant to happen. Absolutely.
And if there's something you're a freaking genius at and you love doing, great, do that. If that enables you to get enough money and get enough time so that you can spend 1 day a week, 2 days a week working for a charity, setting up a charity or whatever that might be within the area that really means something to you, not just a charity for the sake of it, but it's something you're fully connected to, then you're aligning what you do with a purpose, and suddenly you understand why you do it. It makes sense. It all fits into place, and you're driven to do it. You want to do it, not because I've got to make some money and because I'm worried where my bills get paid for, and my tax man's going to be shouting at me. No, because I want to make it happen over here.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you said as well that, you've got to look after yourself before you start looking after everybody else. Right. Now, that is such a huge key, right? Because if we don't look after ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, there's no way we're going to be capable of looking after anyone else, right? Including our families, people that depend on us, right? Let alone the rest of the world.
Yeah, we've always been brought up in this society of don't be selfish, always look after others and this kind of stuff. And we find it hard there's so many people that feel guilty when they take a day off.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't switch off and this kind of stuff. And you're heading for burnout.
But what you're saying is that we have to look after ourselves, right? That is so important that we do that. And coming from the notion of we've got to look after others first before, we put ourselves first is actually incorrect. Yeah,
it's a dance, it's harmony, it's getting the synchronization right. So, a successful business really will come from knowing what the problems are that I'm solving.
Right. Okay.
In a nutshell, that's what a business is. It's a systematic way of solving problems. That's what a business is.
Right.
And so we've got to think about the other person, and the more connected we are, the better. But we've got to look after ourselves at the same time. So it's a harmony between those two things.
I like that. I liked how you use harmony, right? Because it gives you peace of mind. When I think of harmony, peace of mind, everything working together is not necessarily a balance, because I don't think you can have a 50-50 balance on everything. Is wherever your attention needs to be at that time, but everything is still working in harmony, right? So
Yeah.
I love that you use that word. Now tell me this, Andrew, what qualifies you as an expert in this field?
Well, I made it up, so I'm the only one that does it. So again, that's a good thing when you're in business. You can create whatever you want to create. Business enjoyment now, isn't it? Doing it? No. Going back to my story, 17 years of running businesses. So and some big businesses at that, multi-million-pound businesses, small businesses, medium business, all sorts. You name an industry, I've probably been involved in it. I've built oil rigs, bingo halls, fashion designers, anything, everything. So I understand the business concept. I understand what it's like to be in a position of pressure within a business. That's my entire corporate year was in that corporate life was in that space. And I understand people. I've done a load of stuff for myself to understand who I am, but I've got all these deep change therapy things that I've learned, and to understand exactly how people think, how the brain works, how we tie ourselves in emotionally from things from the past, what other people say, how we get caught up in our own identities as to who we believe we should be when it's not actually us. And so I've got all these different things that help us to align in ourselves properly, remove those barriers, remove those links. And not just your NLP type stuff. I mean, nothing against NLP, but it's things that eye movement therapies and inner child stuff and kinesiology and all sorts of stuff and energy.
Oh my goodness.
So, all different areas.
Just a couple of things then.
But the key thing for me is I asked the question. And I asked it about myself, and I asked it about other people. And one of the things around this sense of purpose, we do, I mean, I've got my own definition of it, but we do hear a lot about this sort of find your why, your ikigai, all these sort of things.
Yeah.
But one thing I spotted was that most situations where you hear somebody about purpose, it's an inspirational speaker on stage telling, and you can see how they're fully connected to what they do, but it's always associated with some sort of trauma.
Right.
So it's always a case of someone's had a really bad start to life, and they've clawed their way up to success through against all the challenges, against all the barriers, or they've had it all, they've lost everything, and then we get their journey back up. And those are the most of the person that was on drugs, the person that lost everything, the person that lost the use of their body, whatever it might be. This is not, and we're impressed and we're amazed, and it's fantastic. But what about if you haven't had any of those things happen to you?
Well, so you have no sort of trauma, no negative experience at all? Have you come across people like that, Andrew?
Well, herein lies the answer, is to a certain extent, is that we have all had trauma of sorts, but not everyone's lost their legs. No. Not everyone's been a drug addict. Right. Not everyone's been an alcoholic. Not everyone has suffered racist abuse, sexist abuse, whatever it might be throughout their life. Not everyone's in that camp, or are not perceived to be. So, I mean, the example I give you in business terms, if in order to be successful you have to fail, which is a common mantra that said, you've got to fail 3 times before you can be truly successful. Does that mean that when you build a business plan for your next business, you put must go bust in 3 years' time?
I hope not.
Don't make sense, does it?
It doesn't, no.
So when I look at my life, it's like, ultimately, yeah, I've had challenges. I mean, but it's been a nice life. I stable family. I've a privileged life, if you like. Hey, I'm a white male in a middle class in Britain. I've got laid on the plate. What have I got to moan about? How the hell do I find my purpose without having to have some sort of serious trauma? How does anybody have to find their purpose in business without having to have their business go bust, without whatever it was? And that's the question I wanted to ask, and that's what I sort of dug down, and that sent me on my journey to understand, as you say, that we all do have traumas through our lives, except as we've grown up as an adult, we don't realize the traumas anymore because they're insignificant in the big picture, but actually they are still shaping us on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, awesome. I love that. So please, Andrew, please teach a principle to our audience that they can relate to and immediately apply to their business today.
Okay, so I mean, certainly in the purpose sense, it's not a 5-minute job. What I want to do is get them to have a little think about themselves, reflect about themselves, particularly people who are driven, keen to do something, really want to, and if you're driven and not getting that satisfaction, this is perfect. But wherever you are, it's worth trying to understand. And most people that are driven are driven by one of three things. Might be a balance, but there's three things that usually drive people going forward. Fear of not having enough, fear of not being enough, or fear of not being accepted.
Right. Oh, wow.
So fear of not having enough, doesn't matter how much money I make, I'm going to need more money. I'm worried I'm going to lose it all. Constantly worrying about where the next pound's coming from. Even though I'm actually okay and I'm comfortable, I'm still worried about where the income's coming from. Must make more, must make more, must make more. Never ending cycle of pressure and stress that will never get resolved. Really, really successful business owners, multi-millionaires, billionaires, still under stress because they still don't have enough.
Right, I see.
I'm extrapolating it out there, but we can get it at all levels in that spectrum. Fear of not being enough. This is usually where we've got a situation, and again, it's one of those things that taught a lot of us in youth, and it's whether we take it on, but our self-worth is dictated by our output.
Right, yes.
If the business isn't successful, if the product isn't good enough, if the service isn't good quality enough, then that attacks me. And now we're into the world of perfectionism and imposter syndrome and those kind of stuff. So there are some perfectionists out there that create the most amazing things you'll ever see, you know, the sort of Apple product or whatever it might be. And everyone will look at them and be amazed. Oh, this is fantastic. And behind the scenes, that person is dying because they know where the flaw is. They know where the fault is. It's not as good as it can be. My next one. So again, great successes can come from it, but at the same time, that person is being continually not looking after themselves, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And then fear of not being accepted, and this was my thing, is belonging to the right kind of people. Fear of rejection, fear of being abandoned, whatever it might be. Right. And this is what happened. When I'd gone back and looked to things happened when I was younger, I found these sort of little incidences which should maybe build the wall up so I wouldn't get too close to people, so that I therefore wouldn't get rejected by them. Right. But at the same time, I became a people pleaser. So I wanted people, if I help somebody, they will like me. And so help people. So I become a helper.
Yeah.
And you a lot of the outcasts in society, or the people on the edge of the peripheral that don't feel like they belong, are constantly striving and fighting. So please like me, please like me, please like me. And again, can get incredibly successful people, but inside they're never satisfied, never happy kind of thing. So what I would sorry. So what my invitation is to you, to the listeners, is try and work out which one of those feels most resonant. There'll be elements of all of them. There'll be one that will stretch out, that will stand out. And it might take a bit of thinking and running back and say, okay, why do I do what I do? Why did I did that? How did I before? Go back and back further and further. What was I like at school? What did I do to sort of like find friends, or, you know, how do I behave? And see how far you can go back with it. Because if you understand yourself better, this won't create the solution, but at least you now know where the solution needs to be applied. And there's loads of stuff you can do to turn that into a positive. And then we can start looking at purpose from there, because the purpose will be like a reflection of it. You know, I want to help people like me, kind of.
Right. I see. Oh, amazing. I love that idea. And those three things, like, they're so powerful, right? Because I'm thinking back now about me and when I first started, and I kind of felt like, oh my God, I fall in all three, right? I wanted everyone to like me, right? I wanted to be accepted. I had that fear of, what if this doesn't happen? Or yeah, what if I'm good for a year and then that's it, I lose everything, then what happens then? You know, and I feel like I fit in every single one of those categories. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because those three are so powerful, and everyone, I don't know anyone that won't at least fit in one of those categories, right?
And we will all have elements of all three, and I've certainly experienced all three. But and it might be a bit more of a journey as you discover, but you can look back and you can notice as you go forward, one will stand out as being more dominant.
Right. Yeah.
general. So yeah, I've had perfectionist issues, and I won't release anything until it's good enough, and but deep down it's the rejection. I was at a point where I couldn't phone somebody up if they weren't expecting my call. Even a friend, even if it was somebody I knew, I could not pick the phone up and dial their number and say, "Hey John, how are you doing?" if they weren't expecting my call, because in my head I was interrupting them, and if I was interrupting them, they would get angry, and then they'd be annoyed at me, and blah 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 blah.
Wow. Oh, oh God, even something as small as that. Imagine that.
And when you're starting and setting up a new business and you can't ring somebody up to talk about it.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So Andrew, are you able to maybe go through or mention some of the recent success stories that you've had, maybe not too long ago? And I'll love to hear about that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, a lady called Gail, who's just come on through one of my programs recently, and we've been looking at that sort of purpose side of things. And she was in a position where she almost felt embarrassed to come on, because she said, I've got nothing to complain about. Life's good. I've got a business which is running well. I've got I work with great people. There's a few frustrations, but generally, I've got a nice house. I've got, what have I got to complain about? But I just feel like there's something missing. And there's also sort of that pressure when you're around networking and meeting people that we talk about this sort of purpose, and you should have goals, and you should do this, and I don't have that. I don't know. So I feel like there's something missing. I don't have that thing to aim for with it.
Oh, really?
And not uncommon is of us not being satisfied with what we've got.
Right. Yeah.
Or not appreciating what we've got. And it's a fine edge. We want to appreciate what we've got, and it's always good to sort of see what else we can do, but we shouldn't put ourselves under pressure to find out.
Right. Okay.
That will take us on a different conversation. Anyway, what do we do? So by the end of us working together, she can now describe herself, what she does, who she is, and what she does for people in one word.
Oh, and what's that?
She boiled it down into one word: enrichment.
Ooh.
And I mean, when she got there, it was like a weight she didn't even know existed, just like whew, came off her shoulders, because suddenly everything makes sense. So much easier in life in terms of, what do I take this client on? Does it enrich me? Does it enrich them?
Right.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Little nuances and stuff for her to work on, but this is a great thing to play with. Now she's got something she can play with to really sort of fine tune it and understand exactly what that looks like and how we can use it. But just getting it down to something so simple makes life easy.
Yes. I love that. Awesome. So now she knows what her purpose is. She didn't necessarily know in the beginning. She built this business that was very successful, but what was the goal? What was her passion about? Right? What was well,
the full purpose is still another step to get to. As I say, these things aren't always speedy, and sometimes maybe there isn't one. Maybe there isn't one, but it can be worked on now. Getting that base and getting things down to the core essence and knowing who you are in one word means that pressure's off, and then I can now enjoy the journey of exploring what this looks like.
Okay, interesting. And the reason why I said that's interesting, because she's already built a very successful business. But yeah, just having that one word and knowing what she does and having that just described in just a single word meant so much to her, right? And relieved so much pressure from her that now she can move on. It's almost like that block has been released. That was like one thing that was blocking her from getting to the next level. It's been released, and now she can move forward.
Exactly.
Amazing.
And stuff that you sort of knew before now makes sense, and you can actually take it on board, and it frees you up to truly create the life that you want to create.
So what you do for people is really give them these revelations, right? Is open up their minds, let them think outside the box, get creative, and that just kind of opens up more opportunities, more doors for your clients, and is almost having that, oh my goodness, that aha moment.
Yeah, right? and it's always connected to something inside. So, our journey through business is a journey through self.
Right.
The more we understand who we are, the more we can understand what we do in the world and how our businesses work and how we work and how everything works. Okay. And as you say, breaking down those barriers, breaking down the constraints of society and opening it up to say, well, actually, it's a cliche, but anything's possible kind of thing. Actually, not everything is possible, but you know what I mean? Can I jump 200 feet in the air? Actually, no, I can't. Maybe I could build something that will allow me to do that, whatever. But move those barriers to one side and create the life you want to create. That is connected to you. And so when you know yourself, you can then build that.
Amazing. I love that. Now, I know at this point, our audience are thinking, oh my goodness, how the hell do I get hold of Andrew? Right? I want to know more. So Andrew, tell us, where can people go to maybe receive some additional free support or get in contact with you? Well, where can they go?
Okay. So I'm going to breach all rules of marketing. Say, why not? Rules of marketing say you have one thing, one action, one very clear button to press, whatever it is. I'm going with two.
Okay.
Two things are confusing. So if you're listening to this and, if you're in the sort of startup mode, unsure where to go, or just listening and going, my interest is piqued. I'd like to know a little bit more.
Right.
And it's just, then what I would say is go to my business enjoyment website, which is businessenjoyment.com.
Okay.
And there's stuff on there anyway, but a pop-up will appear. And you can get access to my most recent book called More Than Just Money, which will run through the business enjoyment model, show you how you can use that model to find a solution to pretty much any problem that you're facing in business or out. And of course, run through some of what I've talked about here a bit more about what it makes you a bit single. And you will also, because I've got your email address then, scary, you're going to get some emails from me. Possibly 4. I can't remember now, but basically you're going to get access to my business cheat sheet, which is everything you need to know about business on one side of A4. I'll tell you about my podcast, so you can have a look at that, or Facebook group, those sort of things. So it's all just invite. You don't have to do anything, and I will invite you if you're interested to we can have a chat about more stuff if that's something you're interested in doing. So, and then I send out like a monthly bulletin, so I'm not a spammer, but there's some free stuff you'll get. Awesome. If, however, you're listening to this and you're going, what you said about purpose has really hit home, that I am missing something. Things are good, things are okay, but I know they can be better, and I want to know more about that. Now, I do have a program which is alluded to, which is specifically about find your purpose, but I only have a few people that come on it at any one time. So, but I do have a couple of spaces at the moment. But what I would say is, if you go to a different website, andrewmiller.coach.
Okay.
A little bit about it there, and there's a let's get started button that you press. All I will do is set up a call, and it will be a guaranteed no sales call. And I'm not on there to convince you. What I want to do is understand who you are, find out about you, and maybe if this is a value, let's dig deep. Let's find out which of those 3 things is at the heart of who you are, and see if we can find a bit more about what it is that drives you and where you want to go and that kind of stuff. So I'll give you the other stuff as well, anyway, the book and that kind of thing. Say I'm not going to say anything on that call. It's just let's build up a relationship. Let's see if I can help you, and if we want to have a further talk about where that looks, then obviously we can have a chat after that as well. But andrewmiller.coach for that, about the purpose side of things, and we'll have a call on that front.
Fantastic. And guys, the links that Andrew mentioned, they will all be in the show notes, so make sure you do scroll down if you missed it on this video, or if you're listening to it on a podcast. They will all be in the show notes. Andrew, it was amazing to have you here. Thank you for coming onto the show. So many golden nuggets that have been dropped. Amazing to have you here. Thank you so much once again.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Kay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and listening to Uncensored Society podcast. All resources mentioned throughout the episode will be added to the show notes, and you'll be able to find them at the bottom as you scroll down. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe and leave a review in iTunes. Thank you once again.